Hello, Michael Swain here after Kansas football's 42-17 loss to Texas Tech in Lubbock. I'm not in Lubbock, but man, that was a ugly game for KU and one that, in terms of an overall performance, is probably KU's worst of the season. I think top to bottom. Look, I think there's some things you can say off the top about Texas Tech, right? Incredibly talented team, the most expensive roster in the Big 12. Um, you can talk about that off the top, right? They've got the talent along the defensive line. They've got good skill position players. They've got depth. Like, they've got a lot of things. They're probably going to go win the Big 12. That's the team I picked at the start of the season, and they've looked every bit as good as you could have thought they'd look. And you can say all that, and at the same time say KU did not play well, and KU, some of the bigger issues I think you've seen from KU this season showed up again today. Look, we can probably just walk our way through the game. That's probably the best way to go about doing this because there's so much to talk about. There were ebbs and flows. You go to the start, and it's another slow start from KU. And you can now look, every single road game KU has started really slowly. You can look at Missouri and the way that the offense kind of sputtered early, and then obviously the defense struggles, and KU responds, which is great. And that's been a theme of these road games, is the fact that KU sputters early. You can look at UCF as another great example, down 14-0 early. You can look at this Texas Tech game as another example. KU falls behind early. They got to figure out the road starts. You can't be spotting teams 2 touchdowns on the road in Big 12 play. That's not going to fly at Arizona. That's certainly not going to fly at Iowa State and Ames later this year. So that has to be fixed first and foremost. But it was a very slow start from KU, and Texas Tech just jumped out early. And KU's run defense was not good. For KU offensively, I mean, there were just overall struggles. And you get to a point then when you're kind of wondering, man, it's 21-0. You don't see KU get blown out like that in games. Like, it's very, very rare. Like, you can look last year, Baylor, sure, that was a game, in my opinion, I think some of the players probably showed you that, do they want to go a bowl game? I'm not too sure. But in this game, you're wondering, like, man, when was the last time KU really got blown out? And it's probably Texas back in 2023. And that's what it felt like this was trending towards, was that type of beatdown. And even in that game, KU hung around at Texas in the first half. And KU responds, right? That's the part that you can look at this and say, man, the resiliency of this team, it's there, right? They compete and they fight even when it doesn't look good. And KU's obviously able to kind of figure some things out offensively. Obviously, Bowden Grown has a big game for KU at tight end. He's always open. And KU turns it around, right? And at the end of the half, you can look at Laith Marjan. I mean, what a player KU has at kicker, right? A guy who is one of the best in the country. I think he was one of 6 players nationally who hasn't missed a field goal entering today. And to go out and make that field goal before half, right? That's a huge momentum boost going into the half. And we can talk all about KU's struggles, right? And kind of the middle eight and the final minutes of halves. And you could look today, and KU did such a great job of closing the half, right? In the final minute 15, it goes from 21-7 to 21-17. Right? That's a huge improvement from Kansas and where some of the issues have been. And then the second half, things just really fell flat for KU. Offensively, I think that's where we have to start. KU just could get nothing going. And I think KU tried to get some of the short passing game going, but those gains were so short, right? There's that one third down thrown to the near side of the field where I think it was to Emmanuel Henderson. It's third down. Got to get past the sticks, the short pass underneath the sticks. At that point in the game, it felt like Texas Tech was really doing their best to make it where KU couldn't get those deep, explosive plays that we've seen from this offense that can really, really change games. And KU couldn't kind of nickel and dime their way down the field consistently in the second half. And I don't think there's any better stat that shows that than you can look in the second half, average yards per play, KU 3. It's just not good. And you can look at some of, the play calls from Jim Zabrowski. We can always Monday morning quarterback play calls from coordinators, but you can look at KU's overall struggles. And from a Texas Tech perspective, some of the stuff, did they change at halftime? I think so. I've got to go back and watch it again much more closely. But then did KU adjust to those adjustments well? That didn't feel like it watching the game. And so KU just really can't put up points in the second half. And now this is another game where the offense really, really struggles in the second frame, right? You can look at the second half against UCF. Obviously, they score the touchdown, but that comes off of a strip sack fumble that puts KU inside the 10 to start. And outside of that, right, they got the field goal. And so KU, it's another poor second half offensively. And that's something that's got to be fixed coming out of the bye week in the second kind of half of the season. I know technically this is the start of the second half, but you know what I mean. That's something that's got to be fixed. And then you can look on the other side, right? Baron Morton gets hurt at the end of the first half. That was a big moment for KU. But then in the second half, I mean, they did such a good job with the quarterback run game. And then obviously the running backs start to get going. They get to the outside. And this is a KU defense, right? We did the film room after the UCF game showcasing how important it is for Kansas and this defense to set the edge, because when guys get to the outside, KU does not have the players to go and make kind of that special one-on-one tackle, right? Bengali Kamara is a guy that can do that in the box, but just in space, KU really struggles, I think, to make some of those really incredible plays that obviously, great players make and top tier guys do. And just right now, KU's not getting that. So as a result, Texas Tech just runs all over KU, and I can pull up the final box score here. Tech runs for 372 yards. I don't have it in front of me the most since, but it's the most since a lot. And again, KU held under 100 yards rushing. Obviously, the offensive line's a topic we got to talk about. Run blocking has been an issue this year. But man, the pass blocking, it was very Missouri-like in terms of the way that KU allowed pressure. That was a big thing going into this game that you looked at and said, man, this Texas Tech defensive line is so talented. You got to find a way to protect Jalen and give him a shot, right? And KU just didn't. And Calvin Clements is really having some big-time struggles, and it's someone that I think everyone wants to do well, but we're halfway through the year, and when he's played the top-tier players in the conference, he's struggled. Now, he's a first-year starter. He's learning on the job. He's going to get better. And over the course of time, I think he will get better. But right now, he's just having some struggles. And look, it's not just Calvin Clements. Like, the entire offensive line for KU had some major, major struggles today. So, look, it's one of those games where, did you think KU was going to win going in? Definitely not. I didn't. But still, aspects of this performance are concerning, and other aspects I think you maybe would have expected, right? Texas Tech's defensive line, really good, up there with Missouri. It's just something KU's not going to play again. Like, K-State's defensive line is not that. Arizona, Iowa State, it's not that. So you have to keep that in context. But still, at the end of the day, this was a not great performance from KU overall. And now they go into the bye week with, time to recoup, reset before a really big K-State game. I'll tell you what, that's a betting spread. I am very interested to see what it opens at once kind of these updated lines start coming out. Because perception-wise, right, K-State, they do what they do earlier in the day, and KU then comes out and has a performance like this. It's just, perception's going to be interesting to see what it's like. So KU's got a chance to reset before the K-State game, and kind of a little stretch there. KU plays K-State, Oklahoma State, Arizona before, I believe, the next bye week. KU's got to come out of this 3 stretch, I think, with bowl eligibility, right? Because then you look at the final 2 at Iowa State against Utah, 2 tough games. So, look, poor performance overall for KU, 500 yards allowed. Third time that's happened this season. You can go back to last year, that only happened twice. The year before that, it only happened twice. So, I mean, you got to have some concerns about where the defense is at. You got to have concerns about, the offense and their ability to put up points in the second half. There are just some things that you're going to have to watch over the next kind of game or two to see if they get fixed. And if not, there are going to be some just bigger questions about where things are at with KU and just where this team's at. It's one that at the start of the year you looked at and said should make a bowl. They still should make a bowl. But again, these are issues that have to be corrected. So, look, those are some of my thoughts. Thanks so much for watching. Make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel. Got plenty of content up on fog.net. Make sure you're checking all that out. See what Lance Leipold had to say. Pretty interesting post-game press conference, in my opinion. And obviously, we'll have you covered throughout the course of the bye week. So, thanks for tuning in. We'll talk to y'all later.